Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us. Hi, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to be here. Love to talk about research. So this is like what I get jazzed on.
And on one of my favorite topics as well, Kinesio tape, or one of my favorite modalities, I should say. I love Kinesio tape. So to those of you who are joining us today, it's really great to have you. Welcome. I just want to let you know that this is a conversation, so join in. We're going to be talking to each other, but we would love to speak to you as well. So let us know where you are, where you're from, and any questions or comments you have. Anything you'd like to discuss, just share that with us. We're going to be chatting about Kinesio tape and some of the advancements in the field or in the use of this modality, which is quite exciting. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who has Kinesio tape up there at the top of my list of favorite tools to reach for. So it's always super fun to chat about it and to chat about the applications and things that we can use it for, and the research in the field. So Rebecca, would you please introduce yourself? Let us know a little bit more about who you are and what you do, and then we'll jump into our conversation.
Absolutely. Well, again, thanks for having me here. I absolutely love this field. So easy for me to talk about it. My name's Rebecca Haddock. I am the owner of Equi-tape, and I also run the company. So this is my life. This is everything I do. Um, I got started in this field years ago, but I was a horse trainer and I specialized in colts and natural horsemanship. And so I got a lot of people who brought me problem horses, right? Because colts, why not do problem horses? And what I found out very quickly was these horses didn't have problems, they had pain. And I ended up going into rehab because I had to get these horses well to get them back to their owners. And what I noticed was that I was calling in all these different modalities to try and help these horses. And I was like, I need to find something more versatile. I need to find something I can cover all the bases with. And just give those horses something consistently. And so I found kinesiology taping, and I got lots of different certifications in it, and ended up meeting the old owner of Equi-tape, Dr. Beverly Gordon, and the creator of the modality, and just fell in love. And she's mentored me for years and years. She's still a part of Equi-tape. She still chimes in quite a bit. Just a wonderful woman. And honestly, we all owe kind of a tip of our hat to her, because everything we see out there, tape on a horse, started with her, and what a groundbreaking thing she did. I just love her. And so, yeah, she just kind of started this craze, which has gone around the world now. And I absolutely love it. So that's how I got started. That's who I am. And just excited to be a part of this amazing modality.
Awesome. Thank you. So guys, why don't you guys introduce yourselves as well? If you're watching and joining us live, please let us know who you are and where you are. We'd love to chat with you as well. So Rebecca, over the last few years, we've seen quite a few research articles published with regards to equine kinesiology taping, which is incredibly exciting. But some of them are, pretty good, and some of them not so much. Which are the papers that are the most exciting to you?
There are a few. One of the papers that we are going to talk about today, I'll leave that for later, because that one I was really excited about that when that came out. One of them that I want to touch on was in Science Direct. It is a research study done on post-op and using kinesiology tape to reduce inflammation. Absolutely phenomenal. I love that. The horses, they had, these horses basically go in for surgery and then they come out, and one group is just buted and the other group is bute and Equi-tape, or equine elastic kinesiology tape, sorry. And the horses that had that application on, they saw a reduction in inflammation 3 times as fast. And so that's an awesome study, and everybody should read that. There is the study that I just concluded at Murray State University that we can talk about that one. It shows a lot There's two different fields of research, and it's important, I think, that people understand we have different types of research, right? We have field
Mm,
research or observational research, and then we have the clinical side. And this is where there's a lot of safeguards put in place and parameters, right? We don't want to be partisan in those. We want to have no opinion and look at the facts and then go through and look at the statistics and how that all works together and analyze everything.
mm,
And so you get a lot of people putting field research out there, which is important because field research leads to clinical. But
mm,
understanding the two is obviously important to do. And so I think that what's happening here in our industry, in the kinesiology taping world, is that the first studies done on it were being done by people that didn't understand the modality or how to use the tape or
mm,
the technique involved. And so they're getting what we call like no significant results, right? And that's because they didn't understand how to use it or what it's designed to do. Like if we want to study muscle relaxation, we can't just put a piece of tape on the horse anyway. It has to be put on with a specific technique in a specific direction to get the muscle relaxation. So now we kind of put a bad taste in people's mouth with kinesiology tape. Whereas now the research that's coming out, it's really exciting because people like me who know how to use the tape, and this is all I do, are going into these studies. And now we're getting the results that we've seen observationally or in the field for years and years.
mm. Okay, really exciting. Guys, if you're joining us live, welcome. It's really great to have you. We are chatting about kinesiology tape, the research, the advances in the field. Please join the conversation and introduce yourselves if you're joining us live. It's great to have you. So that really brings me to my next question, Rebecca, in that what are some of the kind of flags or indicators that we need to look for when we're reading research? As to whether this is a good quality paper or not, or whether it's something that we should be taking back into our practices?
Absolutely. That's a great question. The first is if you're going to look at research, kind of like, what I previously stated, I'm not going to go through it all again, but understanding the difference between field and clinical. Another thing that I think is important to bring up is we need to actually be studying the benefit that the tape will do. Right. So if I give you a box of any kinesiology tape in the world, it's going to have a list of benefits on it. And it can range from support, reduction in fatigue, all the way through to fascia release or increased circulation, decrease in swelling, reduction in pain. So there's a huge list of benefits, but we have to understand that one single piece of tape put on a horse, you can put that piece of tape on, 5, 6, 7 different ways, depending on the technique, the cut, things like that. And each technique brings about a different physiological result. So in
Mm,
order to research it properly, we have to be using the right technique and the right piece of tape. Okay, so that's also really important. In the field and observationally speaking, we have found that true equine tape is made very different than human tape. So if you're studying a brand of tape on a horse and not getting certain results, we see that in the field all the time. So the red flags that I would look out for personally is, was there a trained practitioner who put the application on? Right, because that's going to change how the research ends up. It's going to change your physiological outcome. I was thinking about what would be the best for the consumer or even healthcare practitioners in the field right now. Um, the best research that we could do as kinesiologists in this field. I mean, I would love to do this, and if anybody's listening and you're with a clinical group or university who wants to take this on, we take one piece of tape, single strip, rounded corners, and we put it on in 5 different techniques. And we study those different physiological outcomes on the horse. So we can once and for all prove to all the research who will come after us that it does have to be put on in a particular way to get that benefit. So look for, is there a trained practitioner a part of the study? Did they put the application on the horse? So that's going to help you determine, is this information even worth me really getting invested with? Are they studying the outcome that the application was designed for? Like, what I just did with Murray State University. I did a support application. We studied, did we support the hawk? Did we make it better?
Mm.
Right? So we were studying what the application was designed for. And then I really like when the studies list what tape they used, right? Because this is also important. No tape is the same, right? The way I make my tape is very different than the way Vetkin makes their tape, which is very different than the way
Mm.
Kinesio makes their tape, right? So
Mm.
if you're expecting the same result that you're seeing in this research, not only do you have to use the same tape, but you need to use the same application. So these studies really need to start saying, this is the application we did. Here's the picture. Here's how we applied it. Now you can get some of the same results in training, like one of these articles we're going to talk about. You know, the average trainer, how are they going to know how to get that same result in their horse if they don't know the tape and they don't know the application? So those are the things I would look out for.
I love that. And I would also think, are they treating normal horses or pathological, horses where something is actually wrong? Because if we're applying tape to a normal tissue, then are we going to have, the same effect as a tissue where there is a pathology present?
There was a
So
study in, it was years ago. I tried to find it for you, but it was years ago. I can't find it. They put a completely sound horse on a treadmill and trotted him and engaged the stride. Then they took the horse off the treadmill, put a piece of tape on the horse. They didn't clarify where, took it off, put the horse back on the treadmill and trotted him and said, no significant change. It's a sound horse. What were you looking to do? That's a good thing you didn't change your horse's stride, right? Come on. So yes.
yeah.
Also,
Okay.
what horses are we working on? Do they have a real issue? Or if we are looking to see, are we increasing their physiological outcome? Are we looking to have them work harder, right? Are we looking for that muscle to fire harder? Then make sure we're using sound horses. And you know what I mean? Let's not take a horse that is obese and then see if they're working harder, right? You've got to deal with the animal of what the study is actually going to go with. So if you're
Mm.
working with athletes and you want to know if it's going to help an athlete, use athletes.
Okay, I love it. Guys, please join in the conversation. If you've just joined us live, we are chatting about kinesiology tape and the research. We're going to jump into into some research papers now. So let's start with one that I think most of us are familiar with that was published in 2020, the effect of kinesiology on flexion extension of the thoracolumba back in horses at a trot. And this is one of those where there was no significant change found, and we're all going, well, why not? What happened? So do you want to chat to us about that one and how they did it and why they potentially got the results that they did?
Yeah, so this is one of those they don't give us a lot of information. This is another reason why
Mm.
my red flags in research studies, like, give the information. So we don't know where exactly they taped other than abdominal muscles. There's a lot of abdominal muscles, you know. So, and how did they put the tape on? Was it a piece of tape with no tension? There was no stretch. Did they start in one direction, go? We don't know. And then we want to see about flexion and extension in the thoracolumbar, which is the spine, at a straight trot. The spine shouldn't be flexing and extending at a straight trot. There's so many muscles designed to hold that spine stable. You know, one of the most important muscles in the horse's back is the multifidus muscle. That is its whole job, is while we're moving straight forward to keep a nice stable back, right? The flexion of the spine happens in lateral flexion. When your horse is flexing lateral, that's where that spine starts to flex, right? So my question is, number one, I would think that's a good thing that your horse is trotting in a straight line and we're having a nice stable back. That's a really good thing, right? So, um, but if we are putting on to see some kind of result, then I would think you need to do something that shows you that the abdominal muscles that you taped are having a reaction out of it. So that would be my concerns about that. Again, that takes me to that point I brought up earlier. you have to be researching what that piece of tape's benefit is going to give you. If you wanted to see about more flexion and extension in the back, maybe you're talking more muscular, right? Then why not tape the back?
Hmm.
So that would be my thing there.
Okay, guys, welcome. You are welcome to hop in, join the conversation, chat with us. I know that many of you are already familiar with this paper, so any thoughts? I wanted to chat about it for exactly that reason, that, you know, there are so many questions. We don't really, like, we can't really take these results into clinical practice and do something with it. It leaves too many open loops. They used healthy horses as well. Something that came up before in conversation is that there were individual movement adaptations that occurred in these horses, and that might mean something to us. So that might be something that we can look at further, in why do horses adapt individually to the same tape application, healthy horses. So just something to think about. But I'd love you guys to join the conversation. So Christy, hi from Wyoming. It's great to see you. It's great to have you. And Calandra, thank you for joining us. You have lots of love coming your way, Rebecca, so that's super great. Okay. So let's chat about the next one, which is a new article that was published that we all got really excited about. The application of kinesiology taping to the equine abdominal musculature in a tension frame for muscle facilitation increases the longitudinal activity at the trot, or the stride length. So do you want to chat to us about that one and what they did and what they found?
Yeah, love this study. Key things to point out right away. They talked right up front about, okay, this is what we're doing. We're putting a piece of tape on with no stretch, and then we're going to put a piece of tape on with stretch, and we're going to see what happens. Love it, because they're proving to you right up front. There's two different ways you can apply tape, and one is effective and one is not. The other thing that I loved about this was they notated that there was an immediate response, and it lasted after the lunging session, right? Equi-tape for years, and again, Dr. Beverly Gordon created this modality, I mean, almost 15 years ago. And from the beginning, what she was doing was working on horses, athletes, and making training better and conditioning better so they could compete and perform better. And from the beginning, we've been saying, like, using kinesiology taping your training routines and the regiments, and even physical rehab when you're coming back after an injury and working, you can get so much more quicker. A paper like this proves something that we've observationally seen and we've seen in the field for years and years and years. And they studied it right. They even notated that they had a trained professional do the application. That's important. That shows us that if you want to study this right and see if the benefits on the box are real, we need a trained professional to put the application on, and then we need to understand what we're doing. They allowed this horse, or the horses in the study, to work out, right? So the type of application they're doing is what I call an assist. We're assisting the muscle in its operation. Basically, we're assisting the flexion, the contraction of the muscle, the belly of the muscle moving up, right? And so in order to get that, your horse needs to hit oxygen debt. Oxygen debt only happens once you've been moving enough, right? The muscle has to burn enough of the oxygen out of its muscle itself, out of the soft tissue, to hit that oxygen debt. That's when your muscle works the best. And that's when the tape helps that movement work the best. So I love that they allowed that horse to get to oxygen debt. And that means that somebody, whoever did this study, and I tried to do more digging to find more out. There wasn't a lot there for me to find out. But whoever did this study, they knew what they were doing, and it made it clear in the conclusion and the outcome.
Okay, I love that. So what, sorry, lost my train of thought there. I would love to know what you think about the amount of tension that they used in that application, because they were using, if I remember right, like 100% stretch in the one application. Am I remembering that right? But it was a very high tension. That was
I
one of the
didn't
things in the
see,
beginning where I was like, why did they use that much tension?
right.
Because
I
I
didn't
certainly
see
wouldn't have.
that. I didn't see that there. And I looked through that study quite a few times. I'm trying to figure out more information. I can tell you, you will get a lot out of a piece of tape applied right. I don't, in my company, recommend you apply more than 50% stretch ever
Yeah.
on any application. Um, and the reason for it is this. A lot of people, I get it. I get going to that 100% stretch if your tape can handle it. But I'll be honest with you, there's not a lot of tapes out there that have enough stretch to be able to handle 100% stretch. Okay. So, first and foremost, you must also consider the amount of movement the muscle itself is going to do. So, let's just quickly pull a muscle out that everybody here should know, or if you're just a normal consumer, great, you're going to learn a little bit of anatomy real quick. The big muscle in your horse's back, the longissimus dorsi. When the longissimus dorsi is at its shortest position, this is when the head is up, the head and neck is up, and they're really like trying to contract that pelvis up to the head, right? And this is where we see an almost dip in the back. We never want to see that back muscle fully flexed out. Or if your horse likes to do those yoga stretches where they curl their head way up and like dip their back in, that's the fully flexed position of the longissimus dorsi. The fully extended or relaxed position of the longissimus dorsi is when your horse is reaching around to scratch his flank. So it's unilateral. It happens on one side. So one side's fully flexed, one side's fully relaxed. That change in the muscle is 2 times the length. It's a massive change. So let's say I put a piece of tape on at 100% stretch on that muscle, and he's in a normal position. Head and neck is level with the ground, so we're stay midway. And then he reaches around and scratches his flank. You've now added another 100% stretch into your piece of tape. So what happens is the general consumer or even our vets and vet techs, practitioners, body workers, they're overstretching the tape pops off, they get upset. So we have to know how to use the tape right and how to respect that stretch because it is designed for movement, right? Kinesiology, the study of the horse in movement. We need to be able to put these applications on the horse so they can go through full range of motion. So here we have, if they did put it on at 100% stretch, it's not going to last very long. I can tell you that. It's going to come off pretty quickly.
Okay.
But I've just never seen a need for it. You know, like I said, we don't suggest using it more than 50% stretch.
Okay, yeah, great. I'm happy to hear that because that was one of the things I was so confused about. Like, why? How many people do that? How many people use that kind of application, that kind of tension in a normal application? I don't know anyone,
Right.
that is doing that. So to me, that was a big flag in the study. And then I would say that the next thing that stood out for me for the study was the measuring system that they used to look at the stride length. Essentially, they were trying to measure the stride length, but to do that, they were using an accelerometer device, which was attached to the trunk of the horse. And now, you guys have to forgive me if I'm completely wrong because I don't really know anything about accelerometers and how they work, but that just makes no sense to me. How are you measuring the length of the stride with something that's attached to the trunk of the horse? So to me, that was very interesting. And I actually have the paper here. Oh, yeah. So they used 25% stretch on the rectus abdominis and 100% stretch on the oblique external abdominis. That's
Okay.
a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
lot for the oblique.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. Do you know anything about the accelerometer and how good of a measure that is for stride length?
I can tell you in the study we did, we used dartfish, excuse me, a motion camera, that
Mhm.
slows down frame by frame so we can truly measure the stride length. I have looked into accelerometer. I have looked into trying to figure out sensors for that exact thing for my own personal research here at the Equi-tape facility. And so I I do understand the way they work. You need one structured place, and then you have to have the sensors down at the limbs, like the lameness locator. It works similar to something like that. So you have one place, and then these other places all now send data back and forth from that point, right? I don't know if they did that, in fact, because when I was looking out there, I couldn't find anybody who had the system that I wanted to be able to
Mhm.
measure it this way. The most accurate I could find was in the motion film. So again, it's just a very high quality camera that slows things down to
Mhm.
millimeter seconds, if you will. And then we can actually measure length of
Yeah.
stride.
Which makes sense to me. It's like
Right.
that's quite that technology is quite accessible to us, and it makes sense to use that to measure stride length. So I have questions about, did they really increase the stride length in the study? I'm not convinced. I am excited about the study. I think it's fantastic. I'm
Yeah.
just not convinced.
Right.
so so I'd love to know if you've tried it. Have you tried this abdominal application and tried to kind of test it?
I have been using applications like this for more than 10 years.
Mm,
They are incredible. So what they came to conclusion is exactly what I've experienced for a long time.
okay.
I don't tape it particularly that way. I've found um, better ways to do it, if you will. Um, and so, but it is very effective if you do it right.
Mm,
Especially if you're taping from your origin points to your insertion points with the right amount of stretch. I would say 25% max on something like this. And just then you get a great response. It stays on your horse. Those are important pieces, right? Because that at 100% stretch, you're most likely going to pop it off by the end of your workout,
yeah.
anyways, right? So, if you back it off, it's going to last through the whole work, and you do want it to last through the whole workout, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great thing, and I love this study. Can we do it better? Yes. And every research study that we go into, we always come out and we ask ourselves the same things. What did we learn and what can we do better next study? Oh, I
Mm,
wish I would have measured the circumference of the hawks before I did the applications. Okay, next time I study hawks, I will measure circumference. Little things that you don't think about until the end of the study.
and
A lot of times when I'm looking at these, because I see it myself, we're testing these horses a lot on the straight line with a handler, and we see a
mhm,
curvature in the horse, and that's because they're responding to the handler. I don't care how good of a handler
mm,
you are, the horse
mm.
is naturally going to respond to you. We need a better way to get them on a straight line without
Yes.
the interference of the human, the handler. It's the
Yeah, for
humans
sure.
that create the issues in our studies. It's the human that puts the tape on, maybe not the
Mm,
best every time, and so your results get skewed. So it's those
mm.
things. What can we do better to get better results?
Okay, great. Guys, if you're just joining us, welcome. It's really great to have you. We're chatting about kinesiology tape and the research. Kalandra, I want to say, I see your question. I would love to just speak about one more study before we address it. And that is Rebecca's study. So you mentioned earlier that you guys did a study recently, or you're collecting, or you have collected data recently on, on some cases. So please tell us about that.
Sure. So last year, Murray State University was putting together a study on the effects of equine elastic kinesiology tape on arthritic or injured hocks. And so we worked together. I wasn't a part of any of the data collection. Obviously, we had to keep that separate. But I did supply the application, created the application for it, and the tape, and went in and did the first application myself and trained a student there. And this was done by a grad student, but trained her how to do the application and do it right. She was wonderful, but I was kind of like a drill sergeant, like, no, do it again, no, do it again, no, do it again. If we're studying it, we're going to study it right, because obviously you're in all these different research studies, you learn how to do it right. So wonderful study. We had a control group, treatment group. Our study was 4 weeks. We wanted to do longer, but that's what the university could do. It's hard to help an injured hawk in 4 weeks. I mean, you can, but let's be honest, these type of things, they need more time to heal. Arthritis is degenerative, so we have to really think through that. But every one of our treatment horses had a significant result. Their flexion test was better. In the dot fish, we saw better stride lengths. Lameness locator, we saw better interaction with the ground on every single treatment horse. So it's a wonderful study. I sent you just kind of a brief on it. I am going to be putting it into some journals, but I just need to get those last pieces of things done. And I wanted to allow this grad student to get through her thesis and defending it. And so we just did that, I think, a week and a half ago, defended the thesis. So here we are now, ready to start moving it forward and get it published. But it was a great study, and it showed that we can help these horses in 4 weeks. So we had significant results in 4 different test metrics. We also did behavioral evaluations, and all of the treatment horses responded positively to their treatments as well.
Oh, fantastic. I love that. What application did you use? What application pattern?
Absolutely, yeah. So anybody can go check it out. It's in our Hawk module. You can just go to our website. We have advanced education, and we do it modular style. So it's Hawk level 3, and it's the variation. So at the end, I give you the variation. So anybody can use it. We used Equi-tape Advantage. So if you want to get the same results, you'll want to get that Hawk level 3 variation and use the Equi-tape Advantage. But within 4 weeks, an awesome result. I would have loved to have seen it done for 8 to 12 weeks, because that's a much better healing period. But I think it was exciting to see how far they came in the 4 weeks, though.
Okay, that's fantastic. Well done. We look forward to seeing that coming out in the next, I don't know, year or so.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably get it out. My goal is within the next 6 months. We've got all the data. We've everything. And I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of numbers, but it's all put together. We've already distilled it. Now it's just writing it up and where we're going to publish it.
Okay, awesome. So Calandra has asked that she would love to hear examples of how Equi-tape has helped unique cases and how it can be helpful with rehabbing rescue horses behaviorally. So that's quite an interesting group of horses to work with, is behavioral cases where there's been trauma and there are some issues. Would you like to chat about that a bit?
Sure, absolutely. Some unique cases and the behavioral rescue horses. So 2 very different subjects. So why don't we go after the behavioral horses first, and then I'll give you one fun, unique example after that. I have noticed, and I have worked with a lot of these horses myself, that trust is the first thing you have to do. And so I like to start with a single piece of tape, anywhere the horse will allow me to get towards their body. If that means that I have to do just one piece of tape on the back, and I always do a relaxation application or decompression, so one of the 2. What I'm trying to say is, let me see, I'm not going to poke you with a needle. I'm not going to ask you to pick up your feet. I'm not going to do scary things around your head. I'm not going to touch your head. But I want to show you that I'm going to help you. And that one piece of tape, turn my back, and I give them a minute to process. And then they generally will allow me to treat their entire body. And so it's just, I think, very important, especially because these rescue horses have been through so much trauma. And we want to throw the book at them, right? The kitchen sink, and we want to fix them. We want to find their forever home. And it may just be way too much. Using Equi-tape properly, it has such a wide variety, but it's so non-invasive that you can accomplish a lot with it, and you don't have to bring the scary machines around, and you don't have to do a lot of the other stuff. So I think it's wonderful in that area, and that's what I would suggest doing. As far as a unique example, it was a couple years ago now. I got a call from a practitioner in Australia in the middle of the night. A horse had been hit by a car, and the horse was in the vet hospital, and they had done everything they could, and the horse was just crashing and going downhill. And the vets were like, "We can't do anything." And so she called me and she's like, "Beck, you've got to have something up your sleeve. What can I do?" And I said, "Okay, well, you're gonna have to take vitals like every 15 minutes and blah blah blah." She's like, "I'll do whatever, I'll do whatever." I'm like, "Okay." She's a vet nurse, so she knows how to do all this. And I said, "Okay, well, I want you to do a lymphatic application on each lymph basin." So we had 4 major lymph basins in the horses. And so she did. Within 45 minutes, the horse's body temperature was back up to normal, respiratory was back up to normal, and she was asking to eat and drink. The horse is alive today and fully recovered. So that's one of the coolest cases I've done.
Awesome. Well done. That's exciting. So
Yeah.
guys, if you're joining us live, if you've just joined us, we're chatting about Kinesio tape and we're answering questions. So if you have any questions, please pop them in. Jeanette says, "I'm a certified equine sports massage therapist. I primarily work with dressage, eventers, and show horses. I do see a lot of top line reactivity in many horses. Can you speak to K-taping helping such horses, those high performance horses in training?" Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Jeanette, for your question. Appreciate you being here. Um, I think that this is one of the easiest industries and groups of horses to work on. You can accomplish a lot in a very short period of time. Simple relaxation applications in the top line or fascia applications. I do a lot of fascia to work with tape to release tension and things like that, but also connecting the dots during training. I have a really fun module. It's the connections module where I connect parts of the body together and you use the tape to encourage as the hind leg comes forward, the core lift. And when you get that right body position, then you're not soaring your top line as bad. You're using your muscles properly, the core to lift and support that back, the hind end to lower and tuck and drive forward, that front end and thoracic sling to come up. Now we're in a supported position. That top line doesn't get as sore. So I would do multiple things. I would really relax that horse at night, maybe do some fascia, and then do the connections during the workouts so that the horse is using their body better and that top line doesn't get as sore. Great question.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. I love that. And then Jessica asks if you can touch on timelines prior to competition. If a horse is taped prior to competition but cannot be applied during, what do you recommend? Very good question.
Absolutely, yes. And we've got some really amazing practitioners that this is all they do. They travel on the show circuit, jumpers and dressage and reiners, and they just go everywhere with them because it is so good. And these groups of, these training, I love them. You got a trainer and 15 different riders, and they got 30 horses, and they show up to one show. It's just a whole event. It's so great. I love it when just how intense these people are, and the equine athletes are amazing. But here's what I would suggest: in the areas that you cannot have tape during competition, Jessica, you want to do things like relax the muscles at night. Putting a support application on the fetlock and lower leg. I would do the athletic support in our modules. Again, we have the lower leg module, level 1 athletic support during the night. What happens when we support that fetlock and the suspensory, deep digital, superficial digital, the whole body relaxes more, right? Because the horse locks in and the stay apparatus in the front and the back, it locks in, but also it's supporting. So these ligaments and tendons, they take a break overnight, and you can do some relaxation applications. Generally, depending on your area, your discipline that you are competing in, there's different relaxation applications I would suggest for the different disciplines because the athletes are very different for each group. Dressage horse compared to a barrel racer, absolutely different. Throw a reiner in there, and you really do need different applications for the discipline. But yeah, I would definitely do it before and basically at night. So get done with the
Mm.
competition, put them in the stall, tape them up, support those legs, relax the muscles that are usually the tightest ones, generally going to be your back, the horse's hamstrings, the semitendinosus, semimembranosus, are big neck muscles because that's forward extension of the leg. So your brachio, your omo, things like that.
Lovely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to everyone who's joined us live today. It's been really great connecting with you, chatting to you, answering your questions. Thank you for joining us. And we are always looking forward to new research coming out. Oh, wait, we have another question. Jeanette says, fascia is a hot topic these days when doing body work. How is Equi-tape able to help address fascia, and how long would you leave it on? Great questions today. I'm loving this.
Yes, good question. It is a hot topic, right? I love fascia work. I do a lot of in field research, observationally speaking. Equi-tape spent, I don't know, almost 3 years working on lots of different fascia applications and what truly worked the best. We have a whole module on it with 3 different levels for all of you out there. If fascia is your go-to, definitely get yourself educated in this area because there are lots of different applications that you can use because there's different types of fascia in the horse's body. We have fascia lines or fascia chains, and we have muscle fascia. We have fascia that connects our skin to our muscle. We have fascia that goes around our tendons and ligaments and connects into the bone. Fascia that goes from muscle and turns into a ligament. So there's tons of different fascia, and the way that we want to work with it is going to change depending on where it is in the body and what it's doing. And so I would say that it's very successful. I have myofascial therapists that came in, learned equitaping, and now they use equitape primarily for fascia, and they get in and do other massage at that point in time because it's so much more effective. How long to leave it on? It depends on how aggressive your application is. Okay, I like to remind people that it can be like a massage for the horse, so if you've got a nice, gentle, light massage, great, leave it on till it falls off. If you've gone aggressive, and I do aggressive applications, I don't know. I mean, would you like a massage therapist ripping apart your fascia for hours on end? Probably not. So I like to think of it as how would I feel with that application on me, and how aggressive am I with it. So the lighter and more relaxed the fascia application is, then I like to just leave it on until it falls off. So it just depends on what you're doing again and what piece of fascia you're working on. Fascia chains, things like that, guys, do it with that moderate to mild stretch. That way you can cover the whole chain, leave it on the body, because when we address the whole chain, you can see your horse turn around in a day. And you want to talk about being a better athlete. I mean, we're talking these athletes can go out there and perform at their best because now their whole body is working the way it should and there's no restrictions. Make sense?
I love
Hopefully.
that. Yeah. I love that. And I mean, I've had the same experience as well, where I've used tape first and then gone in and treated manually afterwards, just because the area was too too sensitive for me to effectively touch, effectively work with my hands. And that's a great approach to take in certain cases. So I really love that. And then Megan says, you've touched on how Equi-tape can help older horses and performance horses, but what about foals? Is this something that can help newborn foals? Great question again.
Yeah, good question, Megan. Thank you so much for being here. Equitape and foals, you want to talk about blow your mind, blow your mind. So if y'all have babies coming out with crooked legs, get in touch with us right away. The faster we can get the tape on your horse, the better. We've worked with a couple just recently, and within a week, the leg was straight completely. So but we've got to get to those foals early, right? So as soon as they come out, if you say something's wrong, see something wrong with the legs, let us know right away. We do have a contracted tendon it's in our lower leg module. One of the levels is contracted tendons. This is an application that we put through the ringer to get perfect. It works really well, and we've rehabbed a lot of babies with contracted tendons out of that application. If you're the opposite, right? And so instead of up on your toes, your fetlocks really dropped, your knees kind of coming in behind, then I suggest, our lower leg level 2. And this is basically a really beefed up support application for the lower leg, and then carpus support. And that's in our practical solution series. That usually pulls the baby out. Like I said, I've seen them straighten out 4 or 5 days, sometimes a week. But if you don't get to the foal until 6 months old, you're going to have a longer rehab time. The hardest one we did, we got her at 8 months old. It took us, I believe, 4.5, 5 months to rehab, but she's fully rehabbed now and living her best life. So just the faster we get to them, the better.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it. Foals are such an incredibly rewarding group of patients to work with this. We've had conversations with Solange McHale as well, who's done some research on applications for varus vagus knees in foals. So incredibly effective, probably the most effective modality you could use for these
Absolutely.
guys. So definitely any leg, anything in foals, tape should be the go-to for that. It should not even be a question anymore, because it is by far the most effective when our alternative is surgery, or splinting, or really quite invasive and painful and difficult to manage things that are not necessarily successful at the end of the day.
That is true, yes. And you are seeing a lot more surgeons, equine surgeons, saying, the surgeries for contracted tendons, they just don't work. They just don't. So I'm loving that we're getting more in the veterinarian world saying, no, it's not working. Why keep redoing what's not working? So absolutely go in there. Your foal's not going to mind. It supports them. It makes them feel comfortable. They want to move more. The more they move, the faster they heal. We can't stress that enough, right? Foals have to go out and run, especially those contracted tendons. The more they run, it forces that deep digital tendon and the superficial digital tendon to come down and really start to stretch. And that's what we have to do, is get them to stretch. And so move those foals, tape those legs, you'll be good.
Yeah. And if you're an online pet health member, I can definitely recommend, we do have a webinar by Solange on this subject. So she goes through multiple different, pathologies, things that might happen to foals, and that you can use the tape for different applications, as well as her research on it. So I don't think that's published yet either. I think they're still actually collecting data and adding more horses to the pool, which is really great. But so far, so good. So Jessica asks, any thoughts on ulcer patients?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the first thing we're going to say is, make sure that you get your problem diagnosed by a vet. Make sure that we do that. Obviously, diet, nutrition is super important in the horse, but also pulling stressors away. Let's figure out what the stressors are. A lot of times I have noticed, however, having said that, if our neurons, the nerves, are sending information from the brain through the back to the belly. And then the belly has to get that information, send it back to the spine, through the spine, up to the brain. All right. This is important for any part of your horse's body. So it doesn't change just because it's the belly. If there's something interrupting that, maybe you have inflammation in the back, kissing the spines, congested pull. When we start to interrupt that exchange of information, we do see things happen like gas colics, water colics, ulcers, things like that. And so we have had a fair bit of I myself worked with a vet and a chiropractor where all we did is open up the pole, and every horse that had ulcers and um, was colicking all the time, right? Constantly. We'd adjust the pole, tape the pole, keep it open, set it, and we're talking 8 to 12 weeks, and it goes away. Why? Well, the body has to talk. That highway has to be clear. So I would definitely, do all of the important things that the vet tells you to do. I'm not saying don't do that at all. So hear me on that. But I am saying opening that pole up, getting it set right. So good chiropractic adjustment, make sure that the pole's good. Taping for support. We do have a great application for that. You can find it in our practical solutions series. And then also opening up in that thoracic and lumbar spine where those nerves come out. There's some great diagrams. You can Google them, whatever. You want to find the nerve, the exact intersection between the spinous processes where the nerve is coming out. Decompress that area with a nice decompression application. And we do have this type of application in our practical solutions as well. It's called Digestive Support. And it will really support that. The whole principle, though, is we're decompressing off of the connections and the nerves so they can then talk. And when that happens, the brain knows to tell the stomach to stop creating as much acid, right? That's what's so important is if your brain doesn't know what your belly is doing, then it's just going to keep producing those acids. So then you live on ulcer meds. So we want to stop the problem as well.
Guys, I'm loving all these questions. We're going to take these last two, and then that will be that for today. Otherwise, we will just keep talking forever. So Ansley says, have you done any studies or had success with taping applications for horses with shivers?
I have. I've had a couple really good successes with it myself. I have not done any studies on it yet. It is an area that I need to get the study done on the nerve itself and how effective are we at decompressing the nerves and creating this environment. So this goes along the same lines as your ulcer question, right? So we've got to deal with nerves. And there's a lot of debate in the equine world about why shivers even happens. A lot of people think that has to do with the gilding scar and whatever. There's a lot of debate out there. What we do know is it's neurological, okay? And so I do a lot of neural applications. I haven't taught the neural applications. It is something that I have been asked to by some of my practitioners. When are you going to teach us on that? But you can. Again, you've got to get into, and for the successes I had was more lumbar, sacral lumbar area, but decompressing that area. And then you've got to travel with the nerves. The tape has to travel with the nerves so that we're trying to remove the inflammation and swelling and scarring and fascial adhesions that happen around these junctures and around these nerves that interrupt the signals. So that's what's happening to our horses, especially with something like this. There's been damage done. How, where, why? We can't put our finger on it quite yet, but we do know that it happens more in geldings, and significantly more in geldings. So that, yes, we have had some good successes. It's all in decompression, fascial adhesions, that kind of things. But for sure, yeah.
Okay, and then Jeanette, reading your question, this was actually not the topic of today, so you didn't miss anything. And it's probably trying to tell you, what are the mechanisms of action of kinesiology taping is like a whole conversation in itself. But potentially, Rebecca, do you want to try and break it down very briefly? How does K-tape work in the first place?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I have perfected the quick answer to this. So here we go. Here we go. A stretched piece of tape goes on the hair. Okay. It must first be stretched. The tape is going to recoil. That recoil lifts on the hair and the skin. Depending where you send the recoil, how much stretch that you use in that piece of tape is going to give you the physiological outcome of things like pain relief, inflammation reduction, edema reduction, support of joints, tendons, and ligaments, activation of muscles, relaxation of muscles. And so that's how it works. It's as simple as that. Stretch and recoil.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. To everyone that's joined us live today, it's been so great having you, chatting with you, getting to know you guys. Thanks for joining in the conversation and chatting with us. We might do this again, depending on Rebecca. I think that it was a great topic to chat about. There's always so much more to cover, especially with this modality where we still really have a lot of questions about, as you say, how it works, why it works, etc. So we could probably have a bunch more conversations like these. Before we head out, I just want to remind you guys that the Vet Rehab Summit is on the 12th of November. Please mark that off in your calendars. It is going to be an incredible event this year. We're going to be taking a bit of a different focus and focusing a little bit more on you instead of on your knowledge, which is new to us, but I think necessary in the time that we're living in. So it's going to be really awesome and interesting. Rebecca, thank you for your time today. It's been really great having you.
Oh, thank you. And this has been wonderful. Let me know and I'll come back anytime and we can chat.
Fantastic. Bye, everyone.
Bye.